What up, y'all? I know not everyone feels like listening to a 40+ minute poll plans video for the month, so I broke it up to abbreviate my thoughts in a more easily digestible way. I know half of y'all, though, ain't subscribed, so go ahead and do that. Like the video, leave a comment with what you think about the upcoming content and your plans as well. And if you want to see the whole video, I'll be providing a link to that as well. Check that out for sure. Thanks a million, and now let's get into what you're really here for, alright? Strago's Lost Chapter. This is a fun time. Feels like yesterday where I was saying Realm is not the prize at the banner. And Realm did not get her LD here, but Ashe is getting an LD here, and Strago's getting his LD board. So let's talk about their upgrades right quick. Strago is not getting reworked, but he didn't need it. However, he is getting LD boards. Strago's actual LD attack does more hits now. It hits harder, and it gives him his skill 1 buff for some reason. I don't know why, but the big thing is that now Strago's every time he grants himself a buff, it is extended by 1 turn. So where previously he had some buff upkeep issues on his double cast buff, now he's gonna, whenever he grants himself that, he's gonna grant it for 3 turns. So he's gonna have no downtime on it, period. And the double cast buff that he's not gonna have downtime on, now it's got more attack up, brave damage up 30%, which is huge for him. Overflow up, and HP damage up 20%. So he got the works right here. It sounds like a little on paper, but in practice, this especially that overflow, when he's got those AoE skills, it means he's just nuclear. It's actually insane. Calls, base call is skill 2, so if the enemy's got even brave, he'll break them. And his LD attack only casts, in both of these calls, only casts once, unfortunately, but it is an instant break if they have brave, and a re-break if they do not have brave. Base call gives attack and embrave to the caller, and the LD call gives attack up and overflow. You probably aren't using these much unless it's a situational case, but yeah, it's solid damage, I guess. Lastly, his high armor plus leans in the HP direction, which means he can hit really high HP damage caps, which is pretty easy for Strago to do with his new upgrades on his LD board, with the HP damage up and the overflow and the attack up, brave damage, etc. And especially if you pump that up with other HP cap up armors, he can do millions of damage with a single button press. Very, very competitive damage. It's actually insane. Now onto Ashe. Her rework actually wasn't that significant. She got splash damage on both skills, and her skill 1 has more hits now, 50% splash on both, that is. However, her LD is super duper loaded. My god, it's 100% AoE attack. That's not the important part. But she gets a new buff for the party, and it gives overflow, 10% HP regen, so that's she's a healer now, which is fantastic. She double enchants the party, so she enchants the party with thunder and she enchants the party with holy. And the cool thing about double enchant is if any of them are locked out, or if one of them is locked out, I should say, but both aren't, then the one that's hitting weakness will go through. So this is stellar. It's pretty much impossible to shut Ashe out, unless obviously in parallel immune fight. Additionally, she's got weakness damage up, and every time she does an HP attack with her skills, with her regular HP attack, with her EX, with her LD, she will inflict the framed holy and thunder resist down. So she's always going to keep this debuff up. Very, very good. And she also has a personal HP damage up 20%. So her damage is also now very, very decent. She also starts the fight with this buff, so there's no real worry about needing to set up or anything. You're good to go from the jump, provided you got her LD boards, obviously. Weakness damage up and HP regen isn't even the best part of what she got. Now, after using her LD, she gets a special HP attack, right? It's a one-time use, but it has an Onion Knight effect to where she swaps, Onion Knight, or Ignis did it too, I guess, but it swaps both party members right after Ashe, and it charges their EX gauge. Additionally, it grants everyone except Ashe a new buff for 4 turns, and this is important. It might look like, and this is an issue with Ashe's kit overall, if you're just looking at her numbers raw and not in context, it says on the description that it gives them a buff for 1 turn. But if you actually see it in context, Ashe's EX Plus passive has a thing that extends all granted buffs by her for 3 extra turns. So in practice, this is a 4-turn buff you're applying to your teammates. That applies to all her other buffs previously as well. She does not have buff upkeep issues as well, and I hope that that doesn't spread around. But this 4-turn buff now gives the person it's granted to brave damage up 30, overflow up 30, HP damage up by 30%, which is significant. On top of all the other steroids Ashe is giving the party, now she's giving them a temporary 30% HP damage up, which can be planned around, and it has 4 uses, so that's 16 turns in total of potential HP damage up like that, which is crazy. Again, weakness damage and all the other goodies Ashe gives on top of that equals setting up for some really powerful burst phases, and this not being on the whole battle is not an issue because it's so loaded. And when I say burst phases, I mean just general damage really quickly. I don't mean burst because this buff cannot be extended and it will go down within burst. This is also great for Ashe's base kit. So you're basically at the point where you're pretty much just LD, EX, and HP, special HP with turn manipulation. So you can get her paralyzed off more consistently. You can set up an LD, and then you can, well, it does require a little bit of setup and knowing what you're doing in advance, but Ashe's bread and butter are now her LD, EX, and special HP attack, and her skills are in between just for buff upkeep and filler, etc. She really is fantastic. I know people who got use out of her for like months on end. It's actually crazy. Her base call is skill 2. It's going to inflict speed down, and if you have her LD maxed, it will actually, since she has her special buff start, this will actually apply the holy and under resist down, which can be situationally handy, and it's got a decent buff to the party for physical and M brave up, so that's all right. And her LD call, very nice. You're not going to get any turn manipulation out of it, but you do get the weakness damage up on the effect, overflow, and you're going to enchant the party, so another enchant call, which is hilariously valuable as usual, and it's got HP regen on the call as well. So this is a very, very strong call ability as well. And it lasts 6 turns. Oh lord, yes, that's a good one. Lastly, she gets the Unity high armor, which makes sense because she's got weakness damage up, and she's an enchanter, so she'll help you reach higher brave caps. And her high armor plus has an even split between brave and HP, also makes sense. She has HP damage up, but the brave damage with Ashe is pretty important as well. So you'll definitely be hitting higher caps if you blue Ashe. Obviously not necessary. Do what you will, given to who you're going to use a lot, etc. What do I think? I think this banner is fantastic, especially for new players who are looking to get a damage dealer and an enchanter who covers a lot of roles. Ashe and Strago is definitely it. Strago has results like crazy, again, just like I pointed out way back on his event. Segan runs him into the ground. Strago has results like crazy with him. Stimpy, if you check out some of his, I think it's Strago bazooka damage videos where he has a blue Strago and he just blows things to pieces. It's actually incredible. Strago is also guaranteed to get even stronger. We know this with Crystal level 90 down the road where he gets an EX extension and even more ridiculous again without a rework. This guy ages like wine. It's hilarious because he's already old. Top of that, Strago can't even get hit with the usual just a damage dealer because he's got the utility with his re-breaks and instant break on skill 2 and LD respectively-ish. I said that in order, but you know what the skills do. And the only really downside that I can think of Strago, because again, he's self-sufficient now a lot more just because you got the brave and HP damage up in the overflows. So he's hitting far higher numbers than you could read on paper. The only really big issue is that without blue, he's not even close to reaching his potential. The difference between a base high armor Strago and a blue armor Strago is actually pretty insane, especially because you got the high HP caps. So if you're not planning to blue Strago, you definitely won't see that power. But if you do go that way, and I know some people are, and they're going to be laughing their way to the bank, the Strago just nukes everything in sight for the next couple months minimum. It's pretty big. As for Ashe, she is loaded. She now has HP regen, weakness damage up for the party, turn manipulation, EX charge, HP damage up for the party on her turn manipulation with her EX, not instant paralyze, but you can set up a paralyze pretty easily, although it is single target. Feels bad. They'll probably fix that on her EX extension too. Ashe is also very, very good. Again, I can't say it enough. This is a fantastic banner. I don't really have any issues with any of these characters at all. Am I pulling though? Well, unfortunately not. I don't plan to blue Strago, but I do have his LD already, so that's less incentive to pull. I acknowledge Ashe's strengths, and again, she's fantastic, but I don't see myself using her much personally. If I get her LD on the free, obviously I'd invest in her, but not a general target of mine. I hate the lazy comparisons because, you know, there's the what are the galaxy brain things you could say? Strago is a non-elemental Talum, Magic Squall. My brain hurts. And Ashe is an offensive Paladin Cecil dash. Never mind. Anyways, odds are if you've been playing long enough, you probably have roster coverage that covers both of these two. That's not to say that anybody's equivalent, but you can definitely live without them, but they are hilariously strong, and I can acknowledge that and also acknowledge that I can live without them. I think that's a fair take. I'd recommend people who are struggling with turn count or need enchant or just heals in general, like this is a godly banner. But for veterans, it's an easier time to pass, I'd imagine. I passed this banner in JP. I also similarly had Strago then, and never felt like I missed out on not having Ashe, but it was cool seeing the people run her for insane amounts of time. Strago does have 2 known reruns. One when Cloud of Darkness Burst Plus comes back. He's the other LD on the banner. He's a bit out of his prime by that point, unfortunately. So he'd be Constellation if you're going for Cloud of Darkness BT there, or LD, whatever. And the second rerun is on Edgar's Intertwined Will, which, if you're not aware, in JP, it's like Lost Chapter 2, and this is where he gets his crystal level 90. And he gets even bigger upgrades and more damage, and he's even more consistent then. So Strago, every tuning pass, he's always good. Can't go wrong with him now, can't go wrong with him later. If you're skipping because he gets stronger down the line in C90, that's really silly, because you're gonna have to end up bluing his armor anyways. So know if you're pulling, know why you're gonna pull, and if you're skipping, know why you're gonna skip. As for Ashe, I believe her only known rerun is when Zac gets his LD down the road. Yeah, it's an in-between banner during RNA's Lost Chapter and Quistis's LD Heretics. So, but at that point, Ashe is also a bit dated. So if you're getting her there, she'd be Constellation. But I mean, otherwise, as I always say, when someone gets an update, this is really the time to be using them. Fight is interesting. It's our first 2-wave fight in a bit. The first wave doesn't have an orb. It's these giant turret spider thingies, and if they get the all attack off, they can actually kind of murder you. So you don't want them to get that off. Some popular strategies were to summon early, or maybe bring in a Garland friend would delay them early. But if you get murdered, you can die to the first wave. So watch out for that. But the second wave, there's the same bosses from the event, and the orb is to deal thunder and holy damage at the same time. Well, let me rephrase that. It's thunder +1 when you hit them with thunder, and holy +1. So they're selling Ashe by that. You get pretty much easy orb control if you hit with both elements at the same time. This can be replicated in the party though if you bring 2 enchanters, such as, I don't know, Paladin Cecil and Desh or Kryl, for example. So that's the safest combo. Or you can just bring one of them and damage reset down with like Tifa potentially. They do go into phases where they have their element shenanigans, where they resist certain ones and they absorb others, and they need instant break. I don't know the exact mechanics for those, but it's pretty choreographed, and so you're best off bringing someone who can pop their brave pretty easily. So Noel, Bart's probably more consistent. Gabron, Strago, obviously, to sell that feature. There's a ton of options for this fight. Trey, Galuf is actually a really good option because he dodges a lot of their physical attacks, and then if he's enchanted and he hits him on the off turn, this same applies to Trey as well, then you'll actually be able to satisfy the orb and keep it a lot safer. But a lot of people will probably just Paladin Cecil and Tifa this one down, understandably so. But who will I be running? Well, in JP, I ran Noel and Galuf and Paladin Cecil. Noel took care of the breaks, Galuf handled the orb in the off turn, so I could afford to bring 1 enchanter, and then Paladin Cecil kept us healthy and enchanted us. This time in global, I'm not going to use Noel here because I already used him in JP, but I'm thinking I'm gonna run like maybe Cecil, Desh, or maybe Kryl, Desh or Kryl. Probably Kryl actually, just because I ain't used her in a minute. And Trey, I think that'd be fun, just because I haven't used Trey in a minute either. Get the off turn and the breaks and stuff, and it should be a pretty smooth time. And that's it. Hope y'all enjoyed the clip and found it informative. I do try my best generally. If you haven't already done so, please like the video, comment what you think and your plans, and make sure to subscribe to my channel for more great content. The full video is linked, so check that out as well. Continue showing love. Good luck, everybody. Peace.